Vetch risked a glance backward over his shoulder and saw, with astonishment, that the jouster had caught the wrist of Kefti's whip hand and was holding it effortlessly at shoulder height. Never quick-witted, Kefti's expression was frozen between the moment of rage when his hand had been caught and the dawning realization of just who and what had stopped him from beating his property. The jouster's helmet concealed most of his face. Vetch could not see enough to read his expression. But why had he stopped Kefti from striking? "The boy is not at fault," the jouster said, in a mild voice. "I took his bucket to quench my thirst. He could hardly take it away from me." Vetch's mouth dropped open with astonishment so great that the pain of his 2 stripes seemed to fade. The most he had hoped for was that Kefti would be too embarrassed to beat him in front of the jouster, which would give Vetch a chance to explain himself. He had hardly thought the jouster would take his part. Kefti went red-faced and spluttering, but what could he say? Nothing, of course. The jousters were a kind of nobility, and certainly outranked a mere Tala farmer, potter, and brickmaker. Nor would he dare do anything further to Vetch while the jouster was there, since the jouster had so forcibly expressed his disapproval. Once he was gone, however, he would certainly extract a double dose of punishment out of Vetch for having looked a fool in front of a jouster. Unless the jouster continued to speak with his master. Then perhaps Vetch could slip away, get the bucket, and go back to his task again while Kefti was talking to the jouster. If Kefti saw that Vetch had run back to his appointed labors at the very first moment possible, he might feel the beating he'd already given Vetch was enough. Vetch kept one eye on them both and eased 1 foot down the stair. The dragon snorted again, and the jouster looked up at it, then down at Kefti. "From the look of things," he continued in that same mild voice, "you've been abusing and neglecting the great king's property. This boy looks half-starved, half-beaten, and treated like a masterless cur. You do remember, don't you, that serfs are the great king's property and not yours? Or is it possible you had forgotten that little detail?" Kefti went from red to white, all the blood draining from his skin until he looked like an enormous damp white grub. The jouster turned his gaze from Kefti to Vetch. "I need a boy," he said casually, as if it were no great importance to him. "And if you're getting any amount of work from one that's starved, he must be remarkable. I'll have him." Kefti's jaw dropped. "But," he protested, but, as you know, a jouster can requisition any of the great king's property within reason, if it is to serve him and his dragon." The jouster shrugged. "One small boy, 3/4 starved, is certainly within reason. You will speak to the king's assessor when he comes to see if the king will permit you to continue holding the land to which the boy was tied. Or, of course, you could see if there is some other member of his family available. But if there is, I suggest that you treat the new acquisition better than this one. The assessor's eye will certainly be on you now." He let go of Kefti's wrist, and Kefti dropped to the ground, to lie there like a quivering, misshapen, unbaked loaf,